Welcome back to the Better Everyday Podcast, where we're unlocking our best self one episode at a time. My name is Grace Garcia, and this is my wonderful husband, David Garcia.
What's up?
And today we have two amazing guests. So beautiful, so handsome. They're related to me. My younger brother and my younger sister. Welcome.
Hello.
It's going to be a special podcast. But before that, we just want to give a huge shout out and say thank you to Beautifully Made Charcuterie. You guys need to check them out. We're going to put their information right now on the screen. They do amazing boards for all events. And I've seen them go all out, for example, like Super Bowl, where they just show like the football thing. You have to check it out. So we'll put also a picture of how it looked, right? With the Better Everyday Podcast, the details.
Yeah. And then they also have an event for Galentine's, February 13th, if you guys want to sign up. I believe that there's still spaces left. So if you guys want to sign up to learn how to make these, and I think it's just a girls' night, that'd be awesome event to show up to.
Yes, go support. Thank you so much for the beautiful board. Delicious. But now onto the podcast. So this was David's idea, but it was sparked by one of my posts, correct? Mm-hmm. So I posted on Instagram and TikTok. It was like a photo carousel, and on each picture, it showed me in the scene of like a church or speaking or something like that. And then I was putting a pro of being a pastor's kid, and then I would put a con of being a pastor's kid. And there was a few pros and cons that I could come up with. And David saw it and was like, oh my goodness, my wife is a genius. This is an amazing post.
Yeah, that's basically what I said.
He was like, Grace, this is fire. And then he's like, podcast idea? And I was like, oh yeah, that would be so good. But I don't want to just talk about my experience because I wasn't the only pastor's kid. I have siblings. And Mercy, my older sister, is not here, but she needs to come and move in closer because I would have loved to have her on the podcast as well. We were all in it together. So I was like, let me invite them for this episode because, yeah, my dad's still a pastor, and we've been pastor's kids since Jesse, you were...
I was born.
He was born. Yeah. We have a picture. He was like a baby, and they were praying for us because my dad was about to open up a church. And so today we want to talk about the pros, the cons, life in the church, in ministry, what that looked like then and what it looks like now. And so...
let's rock and roll.
Let's rock and roll. David's going to be spitting out questions.
You want me to ask questions?
Yeah.
I thought you were going to start with the question.
No, you go.
Okay. Let's see. What do we start with? Let's start with the basics. Off the top of your guys' heads, what was it like growing up as a pastor's kid? What pressures do you remember? What pros do you remember? Did you feel like you took advantage of it? Do you feel like it was whatever? Do you feel like it was a burden? What did you guys feel? Or maybe even still feel?
You want me to go first?
You can go first.
For me, I say I'm grateful that I was a pastor's kid because it's made me the person that I am today. But I don't think I would ever want my children to be pastor's kids.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think so. Again, I don't know what God has planned for me, so who knows? But my plans would not be that for my children. I think there was a lot of pressure being in the spotlight, especially in the church that we were raised in. It was, you had to be the prime example. So when you did make mistakes, you tried to cover them up as much as you possibly could because you knew eyes were watching you and you were already like held to a standard that was unreasonable, and people had high expectations for you. I remember always being told, like, what a testimonio, like, people are watching you, like, make sure you're good. And of course, that's sound advice, but as a kid, you're just like, can you, like, why do people have to look at me at all? Like, just let me do what I want to do, or let me be however. And always just that pressure of just like, make sure your testimony is good, make sure your testimony, like, is sound and all this stuff. So I remember being frustrated at times. I remember people, like, just saying to other friends, like they would want people, like, their kids to get close to us because we were pastors' kids. They're like, oh, like, that's a good friend to make, like, they're pastors' kids. And they were like, so it was, I think now that I look back, a lot of relationships, maybe that's good. Like, I was able to create friendships because people wanted to become my friend because I was a pastor's kid. But that also created with some relationships that fakeness of like, you guys just want me because, again, I'm close to my parents. Like, my parents are pastors. And so there is some fakeness that I did see growing up. Definitely you see a lot of the behind the scenes. So church isn't as glamorous as maybe a new Christian coming to church and seeing it for the first time with a certain lens. We got to see the people hurting our parents. We got to see leaders hurting other leaders. We got to see like all of that stuff. So I think it was just a lot of pressure, saw a lot of the background. But it did allow us to become like, I feel like well-rounded people because we learned that stuff at a young age. So we didn't have super high expectations for every single person. Like we knew people were just people for the most part. So I feel like it again, like made us who we are. And we all like, for the most part, like you've said this before, like we're well-spoken. We can be in the public eye pretty easily. And it's not that big of a deal because we've done it all our life. There was definitely pros. People would always give my parents like fruit baskets and things like that. And you would get like the snacks and that was awesome. But it definitely wasn't all rainbows and sunshine.
That's good.
Jesse?
As a kid, there was a lot of pros because, like we said, like free snacks. Like,
It's like food.
it was just easy. But I think growing up, it progressively got harder in the sense of making friends. I feel like all of my friends weren't genuine because I was a pastor's kid. They would like hide certain facts or like they would like hide their true self. And I was like, bro, aren't we friends? Like, why are you hiding yourself from me? And it sucked too because there was times where it was ironic because we as Christians were meant to go spread the gospel, seek the brokenheartedness. But then there was times where when I would try to hang out with those brokenhearted people, mom and dad would be like, no, like they're not good folks to hang out with. And I was like, then who's gonna show them how to be good? So it was a very back and forth, I admit, growing up of like, I want to hang out with them because I know they're like, they are going through stuff. And I think I can be that person to be that good example. But then they're like, no, because then they could pull you in. And it kind of made me like, in a sense, like, do you not believe in my own spiritual strength then? Like, you taught me the values. So it was, I think I saw, I saw a lot of wrestling in what community was. And a lot of times just, I'll be treated differently. Once I told people I was like a pastor's kid, they would be like instantly changed. Like, oh yeah, we can't do that in front of you. Like, and I'm like, why not? Like, I'm not different. Like I'm literally a kid. I see stuff and I think I was sheltered a lot from like real life scenarios. Like I didn't know about a lot of stuff until later on. And I was like, dang, like life is hard because as a pastor's kid, especially being the youngest, a lot of things were like hidden from me. And I didn't understand people. I was like, why do people go through that? And then once later on, like when I was in late teens, I was like, dang, like life is hard. And like so many people like are hiding and going through this. And I never knew that until now. And like I feel like if I was able to have that openness of just having that conversation of people not seeing me as a pastor's kid, then I would have hoped that I would like be able to change their lives a little bit sooner rather than later. But I think again, being a pastor's kid taught me a lot about showing compassion, showing love to everyone, never judging anybody. But it also was tough when I wanted to be that friend that was like, hey, I won't judge you. But then they're like, nah, but you will tell your parents. And I was like,
Yeah.
like what? Like that doesn't matter. So yeah, I admit it was pretty tough growing up with that. But so.
Grace?
I think for me, I just want to start off by saying I think we had like the best parents. They were amazing, both of them. And I'm sure they're trying to figure out how to be pastors and then be parenting at the same time. I, for the most part, have a good like memory of being a pastor's kid. How you guys said some of the things like free food, gifts.
The VIP service.
Yeah, that's to say preferential
Come to the friend.
seating.
We've saved you seats.
Preferential seating when they knew you. Sometimes you had to like use the card like a pastor's kid.
Yeah.
And then then you see how they treat you different and then it leaves you with the sour taste in your mouth. Like, oh, so you treat me with an attitude because you didn't know. And then you kind of are like, that sucks. Because then you realize why people like kind of see you as different because you get treated different. But you're not aware of that until later when you start noticing, like, wow, just because I pulled up the pastor's kid card, they treated you different. But I genuinely liked it. And it's not until I think I was older and like reflecting on my journey as a pastor's kid where I'm like, oh, like that's why I'm such a people pleaser. Like I'm such a people pleaser. I am so like performative. Like, what can I do? What can I do? And some of it could probably stem from just like my personality and like who I am. But I think it just gets magnified more being a pastor's kid. And you already have those natural expectations. And so if it's already in me, it's going to just double. But yeah, for sure. I didn't even see that because you're totally right. Like there's people who I was friends with them and they would tell my friends, like I had friends who would tell other friends their problems. I'm like, wait, but why didn't they tell me? And it's like, because they think you're too good or something, like, or that you're gonna, and you just are like, what? Like, I wouldn't have judged them and stuff like that. But there are times where I did judge people and I regret and I had to apologize. And I'm like, dang, I was super, like hypocritical. And because you grow up of like, this is wrong, you have the pressure. And so you kind of hold people to a higher standard. But yeah, again, it wasn't until I was older and I had like kids of my own where I'm like, I'm grateful that there's certain things that we're changing and there's pressures that they don't have to understand with. But you call me out on sometimes where I put pressures on them. Mm-hmm. Like I catch myself like walking to church and they're bickering or something. I'm like, you guys stop. But I'm like, they're not even doing anything like bad. Yeah. But it's like, we would sit down and if we would like touch each other, you'd be like, Grace, pon tu mano out. Like people are watching. And I'm just like, okay, people are watching. Like I can't, like be a kid. I couldn't be a kid. And I catch myself like expecting my kids to not be kids in certain scenarios. Like if we're at church and something. And I'm like, they're good kids. They're not even doing anything crazy. But just because it's programmed into me, like we have to look like we're flawless, which is not like no one cares. But I think it comes from that because it was like ingrained in me. Like you have to look the part. And so I don't think they did it with a bad intention, but it just naturally.
But I don't think that's also just like Christian kids. I think that's also like Hispanic parents too, because I feel like other Hispanic parents also do that very like you're around people, you have to present a certain way. Like a lot of Hispanic, I think cultures are very like you have to make sure the image is good and then like nobody knows the actual drama that goes behind the doors. So I feel like it's a little mix of that too. It's just us being Hispanics and then pastors' kids on top of it definitely amplified that like the image was very important and like crucial. So I think all of us grew up with learning how to put up a front and serving even if we didn't want to, smiling through it all, like just everyone had to be on their A game at all times. And
so as you guys were talking, I had this question of, because the pressure, besides the one I talked about, obviously, if we're sitting down and my mom was like, stop, like messing around like as kids, that she's obviously sane. But I wonder if most of the pressure you think was explicitly said by them, like because you guys are pastors' kids, do this. Or do you think sometimes just because we knew we were pastors' kids, like we put the pressure on ourselves?
I definitely think both. Because I remember my mom being like, because you're a pastor's kid. Like I remember there was it was like someone's wedding, but it was a very small wedding and people were dancing. And the music, I guess, wasn't like...
It was raunchy?
It was a little raunchy. But it was like Spanish music that I didn't understand really the words. Yeah. So it was a little bit raunchier and I wanted to dance. All my friends were up and dancing. And my mom was like, no, like you can't dance to this. Like it doesn't look good for you and all this stuff. And I was just like... Everyone here, like, is from church. They're all enjoying themselves. I'm like, why can't? She's like, you can't, Melody. Like, trust me. And I'm like, what the heck? Like, it would be, like, things like that. And there's other moments where just, like, people are looking at you like you're a pastor's kid. Like, I remember those moments. But I don't think every pressure was from them. I think, like, they weren't, like, always every single day. Hey, remember your pastor's kids before you go to school. Like, before you go out of the house. No, you're pastor's kid. Like, no, it wasn't like that. I definitely think there were some times where I remember like, oh, I can't do these certain things because I know it will look bad, especially once I got older and I knew kind of where the gauge was of what would look good and what wouldn't look good. I started putting more pressures on myself, but there was definitely pressures from our parents. I don't think, again, with bad intentions, it was just, again, to make sure that we were holding a good testimony and not gonna make it like I'm guessing my parents didn't want other parents to be like, well, look, Melody's able to do it. Why can't I do it?
Yeah.
And then it caused a whole repercussion of like a bunch of children in church doing things that their parents didn't want them to do because I did it. And if a pastor's kids can do it, then it's an example that anybody in the church can do it. So yeah, I think it was both.
Yeah, for sure it was both. I think I remember there's times like when I was in like the kids ministry, like in class when I was young, and I was like, I felt like I had to prove like I knew my Bible because I was a pastor's kid. Like I had to get every answer to the point where like the teacher was like, Jesse, be quiet. We know, like in a
We
nicer
know
way,
you
but it was
know.
like, we know, you know, and I was like, I had like this proof of like, yeah, like I know my stuff because I'm the pastor's kid. Or if people came with me like with biblical stuff, I was like, yeah, I'm the pastor's kid. I should know it. And I'm pretty sure like I got more than like super wrong.
Not theologically sound.
Yeah. But then, and I think it like not messed me up, but like I think it became so rooted in me where it progressively, like everything I had to do, it had to be proven. We're like, oh, I can do this because I'm a pastor's kid, or I have to be the best because I'm a pastor's kid. Like even in wrestling or like in college. And I think there's times where like Steph had to tell me like, hey, like you can't beat yourself. Like you're stressing yourself because of like basically like the root of how you were raised. Like you're trying to be perfect, but you're not perfect. And I feel like with the pastor's kid, it's like I had to be this perfect image of like even dad and mom saying like, oh, like you have to be polite because you're a pastor's kid. Or you have to behave because you're a pastor's kid. You have to do well because you're a pastor's kid. So I would also put that in and try to do that in everything that I do. And when I would fail, it was like a shame. I was like, dang, like I messed up God. I messed up like mom and dad. Like I ruined their name because I like failed. So I think there was a good amount of pressure. And I like there's times where I still have to like even now dig that root up because I'm like, I can't hold that anymore. So yeah, there's times where I would
Right
And
now
who's
that you
Stephanie?
were
Oh.
right now that you were talking, I do remember one time that I was with you, and we were at some sort of church thing, but it was like old school church, and you had like crazy long hair,
yeah.
and you remember you weren't allowed to go into the church. Your dad's like, it's better for you to stay in the car.
Yeah, I
because
stayed there like for 2 hours
Yeah.
or like 3 hours.
By himself.
Yeah, and then my dad was like, if they ask, you're a Nazarene or something like that, literally because I had long hair. And then I was like, what if I need to use restroom? He's like, try to hold it in. Like I remember because of that. Like,
But did
it
you
was a
feel
whole-
okay? But he said Stephanie, that's his wife. I just want to clarify. She's amazing.
and that's her brother Jesse, and that's her sister
Yes.
Melody.
We never did
I
introduction.
never told them your names. They're just brother and sister. No, but I feel like because when you brought up that example or that scenario, like, did you take it in? Because as David said it, I imagine dad as saying it like, not that I'm ashamed of you, but just like they won't accept it. Like, did you feel rejected like from dad, or were you like, oh, the church? Like, who did you kind of put blame
That's a
on?
good question.
That's a good question. I think I put it more to the church because again, I had that hair. I remember like I had long hair for a while, and my dad and
He
mom
loved
loved
it.
it. Like they loved my hair, but they knew that like this church wouldn't accept you because of it.
Yeah.
So I was like, how can a church be so closed-minded? And I think that's when like when I got older, I progressively was like, nothing's like black and white, if that makes sense, or like so like there is like a middle ground a lot of times. But yeah, in this church it was very black and white. Like I remember kids like walking with suits, and I was with like ripped jeans, and my dad's like, yeah, like you're not allowed to come in there. Like they will like look at you, and it will be very like almost like dishonorable to them in a sense. And I was like, wow, like a church saying like I can't come in because of a look, and I'm like, and I'm a pastor's kid. Like what? Like imagine just a regular person like that. It just kind of was like really
Did
crazy.
you wish that like he would push back?
To be
a
honest,
little bit?
I would have loved it if he did. If he's like, look, like you might, if he like warned me, like, look, this is a very, like religious church we're going to, like a very strict, like they follow these types. He's like, whatever happens, he's like, just stand by me and like it's gonna be okay. I think I would have felt very appreciated. I think because I was so used to like how churches are and how I'm supposed to be. When he told me that, I was like, okay, fine. And I just like stood, like didn't think much of it. But then progressively, I was like, that kind of sucks. Like I had to stay here
But
while
it,
like
yeah, but it was like
everyone
to protect his image, right?
I am going to play devil's advocate because as a person possibly listening to this episode, somebody might be thinking, what do you guys feel is the right balance of like I could see some people being like, that's my son. Like, if you can't accept him, you can't accept me. And
Yeah.
if you're going to kick him out, you're going to kick me out. Like, we're ride or die. It's like, it is what it is. And some people might be confused of like, why would you just not walk in there with your son? You know, like, what do you guys feel like the interpretation of that was, and how would you guys have handled that, or what do you think is the right way to have handled that?
Well, that's why I would always go back and forth, because there were certain times where like, okay, you have to just wear dresses or you can't wear black nail polish. And they made it seem like, as we were older, obviously, and we were able to understand, like they made it seem like we don't want to trip them. So it's like, it's not you, it's not us, it's their mindset, and they are not ready to, like, I guess, confront that. And so the way I see it in their eyes, it was, you know, how Apostle Paul said, like, to the Gentiles, I became a Gentile, and to the Jews, I became Jew. And he's like, well, if someone can't eat meat, like, I'm not going to be like, look, I can eat meat, take it or leave me. Like, you don't want to invite me.
Yeah, that's a good
And
example.
I think that's how they see it. Now, I feel like I'm like that, though. I'm very... Like, you know me, I see both sides, and I'm like, I want peace. I want to see how can I bridge both sides. So I see, like, my dad, where you would be like, that is my kid. I do not care what you say. If you can't handle it, like, you're just cutthroat, black and white. And so I do think it depends on every person, every situation. Like, you would be like, oh my goodness, Grace, like, no, yes or no, they're right or wrong. What do you think?
I think though, like I'm thinking about like that situation like now, and of course as a kid maybe like, you know, could have like hurt you or whatever. You said you more blame the church than dad, but I think about it now. It's like most likely my dad was invited to this event, and he was gonna get paid at this event, and our family lived off of that. Like, my dad wasn't making a ton of money anywhere else. Like, he needed these gigs that pastors would invite him to, and he needed to make money. So I in a way, I'm like, my dad could have also been like, I need to do this. You know what I mean?
Like more vulnerable?
It's not like that he wants to be part of this church. It's not like my dad's like, oh, I want to go to this church and I just want to be here. And they're not going to accept my son. And like, oh crap. Like, it was like, I need to go. I need to do this. And you're not dressed appropriately. Like, I could care less, but like, I need to do this thing. And so now looking back, I'm like, my dad, like, again, I know my dad didn't care about his hair. I know my dad didn't care about like the small things. Like, he's never really cared about those little details. But it's just like, we also had to live. And so we had to conform to certain churches sometimes for certain events or whatever, because
Or meet them where they're at. I feel like
meet them where they're at.
Preach to them, to talk to them.
Yeah, because a lot of churches, especially the Hispanic culture, and even more so back then, there's still churches now that are a little bit more religious on that end, where like you have to dress a certain way, you have to be a certain way. But back then it was very, very common, and especially in our Hispanic cultures, like we had just gotten out of that. Like, our church was very new and reformed because we were no longer having to wear skirts anymore, like not having to wear veils anymore. Like that was like a new thing. But like that was very common. So like every church that my dad was getting invited to, for the most part, was still kind of a little bit more old school. And so it's just like we had to conform. Like it was just, you know, we were the ones that were outside of the mold. So we had to kind of go back into it. And again, that's why I don't blame my dad. I'm not like looking at him like, oh, he was horrible. It's just like, we had to make money, and he had to be at this event, and like, you know.
But I find myself, which is kind of funny, because in those situations growing up, I'm like you feel kind of like the rebellious, you know, like the moving forward, very what's like liberal, right? You're like, oh my goodness, like ripped pants and long hair is cool, and you feel like you're the one pushing the envelope. But then now that I'm older, and like, I guess being a pastor's kid in the example, I go to churches where I'm the one like, oh, that's a little
risque.
Oh,
yeah, for sure.
Like, I don't know if it's age, like the older I get, or again, like in that mindset where I'm like, I would never wear that or do that. Like, that's risky. Like, I find myself kind of being my parents, like judging a little bit. And I'm like, I wonder if that is just me, how we were raised, or being a pastor's kid, where I'm just like,
I don't know. That's how I'm like that too.
Like, I see a video where I'm like, it's not a sin, but I'm like, that's something.
Like, I would never post that in my life. Like,
I'm like, oh, that's pushing it.
And I'm like, oh my God, they're a Christian. Yeah. I do that.
So
I do that.
But like, do you think that comes from our, if you want to, what is it, prescribe us toward?
Do you think it comes from us being pastors' kids, or do you think it's us just...
Do you think we're closed-minded?
No.
Like, we're judgmental hypocrites.
I think I want to cast the net a little wider on this one, because at the beginning when you guys were giving the examples of the pros and cons and stuff, I resonated with something of what all of you guys said. And then it made me think, is this just a pastor's kids thing or a ministry's kids thing? And then you already like widened the net because you talked about Hispanic kids, like, and it's true, like people who don't even go to church, like when you go to a family event, I mean, like your brothers and your sisters, you want your kids to be like the highlight kids, the good kids, the kids that don't make a ruckus or whatever. Like, so I would say like it pertains also to ministry kids.
Yeah, for sure.
How many ministry kids, today I actually heard a story of a young girl calling out her mom, and she asked her like, why are you so nice at church? But then when you come home, like you're a completely different person, you know? And it's like, we always present this front, right? Like we're perfect. And it goes back to the same thing, you know, when you ask somebody at church, like, how are you doing? Like, oh, I'm doing great. Like amazing. God's been blessing me or whatever. And I also wanted to ask, there's a couple of questions that I want to ask, but one quick question is, do you think your guys's experience in the church was heightened even more with who your dad was? Because, well, we've said it before here before. Your dad was like pretty famous back in the day. Tony Perez, big worshiper.
Google him.
He's done.
Ask ChatGPT. He knows. They know who he is.
He's done stadiums
Holy crap.
full of thousands of people. Like he recorded, I don't know how many albums.
People have streamed it millions of times.
I mean, we're talking about a spotlight, right? It's one spotlight to be a pastor, to be on a platform and lead a church. It's a whole other platform or spotlight, the size of the spotlight, when you're kind of worldwide, or at least Western side of the world wide. Like everybody in South America knows your dad. Everybody in Central America knows your dad. A lot of people in North America know your dad. Like it's much bigger. Do you guys feel like it was a lot more heightened because there's a lot more eyes on you? Or do you feel like, you know, maybe you've heard of other PK's stories and you're like, oh, it's about the same?
Yeah.
We're special because of my dad.
No, I was thinking that while we were talking, like right now, because I was like, I feel like the difference between, in my opinion, between us and other PK kids is that our dad had this even heightened platform. And I feel like that's where I felt the most pressured, was because as my dad's not just a pastor, but because he did something with his life that he made a name for himself. And I feel like I had to do that as well. Like, again, like examples of like wrestling and all that. Like I had to be the best because like I needed it to make a name for myself. So
this reminds me of Gambit. I need to make a. I'm gonna make a name for myself.
No, literally. So like I felt like it was different because it wasn't just like, oh yeah, you're gonna be a pastor, like, but like, oh no, you're gonna like play with your dad. Like, oh, you're gonna be like with your dad on stage, like declaring the gospel, but also like making music, like English versions. Like even my dad telling me, he's like I want you to like make English songs of mine, and I'm like, do you not know how musically declined I am? Like, bro, I can't hold a note for my life.
Like Legacy was always like a favorite.
Yeah,
word.
and like and I think Legacy was like tough for me, and I think growing up, like living in that shadow was harder, like progressively got harder because again, so many eyes were on me of like, hey, you're growing up, like, are you gonna like continue your dad's legacy? Are you gonna continue doing this? Like, and especially when I left the church, they were like, hey, weren't you gonna like take over your dad's like legacy? And like it was like very tough with that. And I had to discuss with my wife like reasons why we left the church, but also a certain way we left the church as well. Because I never wanted to live in this like legacy platform anymore, if that makes sense. I wanted to make a name for myself and my family.
Your own
and
path.
like,
Gambit.
I know, no, literally now I can't think of it.
Myself.
But like, and it's crazy because like I'm like comparing you two real quick. Like when you guys went to RTLA, I never wanted to go because not just because of RTLA. Like RTLA is a great church, but like multiple reasons, I was like, I know for a fact that dad's legacy and your guys' legacy, your guys' name that you made for yourselves was always going to overshadow me. And I feel like that was always going to be like the pressure, like having to prove something. So that's why like when I told Steph, I was like, we're moving churches. I was like, we're moving churches to basically restart our life. Like, what can we do without that legacy holding us back, or literally getting us to
Creating
that
a
shadow, if that
standard.
makes sense. Yeah. And well,
No, keep going.
no, but yeah, so, and honestly, like, it's helped me so much to grow just as my own person, to figure out who I am as a person. But yeah, I feel like, to answer your question, make long story short, like, I think with my dad being who he is, it was so much pressure even added to that. Because
I just want to say, whether you have accepted it or embraced it or not, there's a name for yourself that you've been carrying like the whole time. And you've heard it, I know, so many times. And I don't know if you don't think that name is good enough for you. But everyone has always said you have the same like personality as your mom, where you can be friendly with anybody. Like you're a perfect. I think last I remember you were part of the welcome team at your church, right? When you were doing your thing at Awaken with the youth, like you were the dude, you were the connector, you were the hype master. You were just that guy. You've always been that guy, and like again, I don't know if comparison is your thief of joy. And I don't know if you look at your dad and you're like, okay, well, I don't have that platform. I don't know if you look at Melody and be like, well, I don't have that platform either. You look at Grace, well, I don't have that platform either. But like, and you look at yourself, you're like, well, my platform seems like a little small. And it's completely not, because I mean, you have something that Melody has, some of it. This girl, like, she's trying hard to have that.
Trying.
She's trying to go around like kissing all the babies, and I'm just like, I'm like, yo, homegirl, like, but you just naturally have that.
no, yeah, like, I think for sure, I know for a fact, like, I have my mom's like love, and again, like, I think growing up with that, it was just like basically copy and paste. Like, I think I've always loved how she worshiped. And I was like, this is like a true form of worship. And I never tried copying her, but I feel like that helped me to understand, like, I can be myself when I worship and how I am in the church. But what I mean is, like, I feel like so many times, like, there will be times like, oh, like, for example, like, when I would do stuff at the church and all that, it's like, oh, yeah, like, it makes sense why you're doing that, because, like, you're the pastor's kid, or you're like, there was always something that was like
the reason why
the
you're
reason
good,
why, like so many times I'll do something and it's like, oh yeah, it's because like your mom and your dad and all of that, like you're just that.
Like,
and I'm
of course you're a leader at the church. Your
and
parents are pastors,
I'm like, I know
you're-
I'm a leader, like, and I know God has such a great like plan for me, and like I believe it. But then there's times where I was like, I don't want this like shadow of my dad's legacy of like my sisters to not to like be like, this is who I am, and I don't want another person's name to be like, oh, because you're Melody's brother, or oh, because you're your dad's son, that's why you're like this. And I'm like, no, I'm like this because God gave me this, and I'm like this because this is who I am, not because of I have this title in the back. And that's why, like, Steph and I, we left the church because I was like, we want to go to a church where we're able to spread our roots and grow without people recognizing us and being like, oh yeah, like your mom was like this and your dad was like this. That's why, like,
that makes sense.
That's why you're meant to be like the I'm not, but like that's why you're meant to be the welcome leader. It's like, no, I did that because I serve God and I want to serve him because of how I want to serve him, basically. If that makes sense.
But they put you there too.
I
I
understand
Which is like
it.
a fine line.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen the series Vikings?
I've seen to like season 2, I think, or something like that.
Okay, well, there's a point in there where the main character's son grows up, and he basically is like, I need to go out into the wilderness. And the dad's like, why? Like, you have everything here. He's like, I need to go see like what I'm made out of. And I feel like that's what you kind of are saying. Like, I need to go out into the wilderness to see if I can stand on my own 2 feet. I wanted to go into the wilderness to see what God placed in me, and not have all these doors just magically open because of the people around me.
Exactly.
And we had this. We talked with your wife about this. We had a Bridgerton Girls Night Day, and we talked to this with Stephanie in regards to you. And I told you the same conversation. I don't know if you remember. Like, before we were gonna leave my dad's church, I was like, I want to go where someone doesn't know me. But then you were just like, Grace, like, you being Tony Perez's daughter is not a big deal. Like, no one cares. Which I do feel, honestly, at RTLA, I think they've done a good job of not making me feel like that's the reason. Only God knows if that's like the reason. But like, I doubt it. Like, I genuinely think my gifts and my talents have spoken for themselves. But I was thinking, oh man, I messed up my hair. Sorry. But I was thinking, like, as you were talking about, and like my dad's platform, that makes a lot of sense, like why we feel the pressure, because it wasn't just like the people at my dad's church are going to know. It's like how you said, like if anyone else, the churches he's visiting, hear about something scandalous, like it can just, I guess, ruin his name and his livelihood or whatever. I don't know. I wish I mean, we can ask dad, but like, I wonder if they thought about it like that, or if it was just like a Christian thing. Because it is true. A lot of parents, Christian parents, parent with it has to look good because we do it for Jesus, or because like they care more about the behavior modification than the heart posture. And so it's hard to tell if it's just like is that a pastor and like I guess an influencer type of thing, or is it because as Christians we should be doing this? And I sent you a video, Mello. I don't know her handle. I just found her, but she's amazing. And she was like, she just opened up my perspective of like how to raise Christian children. Like we have to remember, if they don't accept Jesus as the Lord and Savior, like they're not Christian. Like their family's Christian, but these are kids. They're not Christian. But we want them to be in the sanctification process already, which we all know sanctification comes after salvation. And so we expect them to be like these perfect little Christians, like not falling into sin, when we chose that for them. And at one point they will come to that themselves and they'll have that process, but we expect them to be like perfect because of us. And I feel like that's not fair. And that like has called me out, like, okay, how am I parenting? How do I want to parent when they're teenagers and things like that? Because I do think one of the biggest things is like how you said hiding. Like it's so much easier to hide because you're in the spotlight and you're like, well, now I can't share my struggles with my friends. I can't share it with my parents, because for me, it wasn't even like my parents are going to like be sad or anything. It's like, I'm gonna let them down. Like they weren't good enough parents. And that's not the reality.
I think we saw even not so long ago where my dad thought it was still him. And I was like, not you. Like it was still such a... he would put up such a big blame on himself if we did things wrong. But I think like while we were talking about all this stuff, I'm like, it's so true. Like when I was struggling with sin, like God forbid anybody found out in the church, because I remember when my parents found out, it was already like, oh, we're going, like I had to get taken away from the kids ministry. I literally had to sit in church and sit in the front. I was no longer allowed to associate with the kids. It was like, now I'm learning as an adult. And I remember like, it wasn't something I was like, oh, I can talk about this. There's someone that can relate to you. It was nothing about like building community. So it was an isolated, you felt isolated in a community. It was very strange. Again, when you would mess up and it was something so bad or whatever, if sin was big, like it was a big sin. And I didn't experience the freedom of sharing my story until we went to work at KOA and we finally talked about like with new Christians that didn't know where we came from, didn't know our parents, didn't know nothing. And we were able to just have a night where we opened up our testimonies and we got to speak about sin, and like people started sharing. I was like, I can talk about like what I've gone through. And I talked about it. And I remember feeling so like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. The church, like, yeah, we've messed up, but we pick each other up. We, we get grounded back on the word of God and we proceed forward. Like it's okay. Like God still loves you. And I was like, wow, for the first time I felt like a community in that area. And then I remember when I went to Hillsong and I did school over there, the same thing. Nobody knew who I was. I was able to like talk freely about my past, talk freely about what I've gone through, anything. And it felt so nice. And I remember when I came back, I was like, I'm not going to let people continue, especially in our church, since it was so small. I knew that was other people's experience, that people felt like they couldn't talk about their sin because our church didn't talk about that. Our church didn't talk about like, I'm currently struggling with anything. And so I remember one of our youth nights, I talked about my struggle, and I remember someone came up to me and was like, I struggled with the same thing, and I felt like nobody got me at church. And it was like a beautiful moment that I got to share what I had learned, but it was really difficult. I think, again, in the church that we were raised, we had just come from a very religious church where you don't talk about any of that stuff, to a church that's like trying to still figure it out, but still has a lot of religiousness still in it. We didn't know how to like allow humanity and the Christian side together. And so it was a very isolated thing, because also we were in the spotlight. It's like a very, so sin was very like hard to go through as a Christian and being a pastor's kid, because you knew better. You were raised better. You were you should have
You have
never
the example.
Yeah, you should have never struggled with this at all. Like, you know, but it wasn't just coming from your leaders, it was also coming from your parents. And I think that also was difficult. It's like you didn't have just a parent at home and then a pastor at church. It's like you had a pastor at home, like at all times. So you felt that pressure. I don't think I ever, it's still today a very weird thing to see, because I'm like, my dad's my pastor, and it's like strange to just see him as a dad, because it's like all my life he's been a pastor. So it's like, I don't really have this is a dad and this is a pastor. He's always done both. So I don't know, again, what that would look like, just having a dad and then, like, let's say he's a leader at church. Like, I don't know what that would look like, but I definitely felt like we didn't have there wasn't a difference. My dad was who he was on stage at home. Like, it wasn't like my dad was a hypocrite or anything. Like, he truly loved the Lord. He seeked the Lord. Like, he taught us how to worship. My mom taught us how to worship. Like, they genuinely were genuine people. So it wasn't like we got two sides, I don't think. It's just mainly when we struggle with things, which just, how do we cover this up? How do we make sure nobody else sees this or knows this? Yeah. I think for the most part, I don't know. It's just strange.
Yeah.
If you guys could go back and ask a younger version of yourselves, so we're talking, I don't know, like whatever, 10, 11, 12, 13. If you could ask that version of you, would it be easier for you not to be a PK? What would that younger version say?
For sure.
Hold on. Can you like elaborate on that question?
Okay, so you're
like the little kid. How do you catch?
I was like, what?
If you could go back and ask 10-year-old Jesse, 10-year-old Jesse, do you think your life would be a little easier if you weren't a PK?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure.
You too?
I think so.
So you guys.
Well, that's hard. Okay. I feel like it would be easier in the sense of like the public eye of the church. I feel like it would be easier. However, I wouldn't change it because of so many valuable lessons. If that makes sense.
So,
like,
okay.
But I feel like if I did.
But that's you knowing now. At the moment.
I'm asking you, that's why I asked. Because right now you guys have gone through it. You're over the mountain. You guys are like, hey, I would never change my life because this is where I am right now, right? It led me to this point. But I'm asking you, if you went back to ask a specific 10-year-old Jesse, do you think your life would be easier if you were not a PK? What do you think that 10-year-old version of you would say?
While he's thinking, can I answer?
Yeah.
I think I'd say yes, life would be easier. But if you ask me, would you want to change it? I'd say no, because I loved it. Like, I loved the good parts of it. Like, that was all I knew. And so I don't think I would have changed it. But I knew this is hard. And I was teaching already, like Sunday school, like already being the main one from 12 years old. And so when you're at a leader from 12, like, you see and you're like, it would be easier if I don't have to serve. It would be easier if I just could be like, forget this. Who cares about the church? Like, that would be easier. But I think a part of me, because since a young age, is like, we love the church. We see what could be wrong and we try to fix it. We try to fill a need. And you're that passionate, like, I get to do this. Like, you want to. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I definitely didn't. Like, I would have been like, no, take me out this, like, right now. Like,
Come on. Like, tap out.
Even though I love the church, and again, like, we're looking at it past, I did, and I loved serving. Like, you guys know how I am. I'm very helpful. I loved serving. That was never the issue, but I do remember just wishing for, like, I wish I could just do whatever I want and, like, not have that pressure on me. I just remember the pressure of people looking at me. Like, if I'm at a dance party, I can't dance to certain songs. I can't dance with certain friends. I couldn't go out with certain people. Like, it was just always a pressure. And so I remember all the time, like, oh, I wish this wasn't on me. Like, I remember for a long time. And even when mom passed away, for most of my life, I was trying to run away from my Christianity. Like, even though I was in the faith, it was always like, okay, but if something happens, God, I'm leaving it, because it was kind of like my excuse. Like, it was always going to be my excuse to, like, I can finally do what I want. Like, rebel, I can go to parties, I could do all these things. Like, I couldn't wait for that moment. And then when the moment presented itself, it was completely opposite. And, God presented mercy and grace and peace and all that stuff. And I found my faith, in the worst time of my life. But before that, I was like, deuces at any moment. I was so down to leave being a pastor's kid. 1,000%. I thought it would be so much better.
Yeah. I think thinking more on it, it would be like, I wouldn't, because I feel like, I think it now, thinking like hindsight, like, I think it might have been the pressure talking. but I feel like I wouldn't want to because I remember like having the opportunity to prove myself as a leader. So it was almost like
At 10 years old, yeah, legit.
like no, not even 10. Like, I'm trying to remember like at
No, but
10,
it did. For me, I remember having like in classes, you were like a prime example. You were a leader.
Yeah, and for me, I didn't mind it, but I remember like I'm trying to remember like the ages, like even 12. I think Pastor Connie also giving me the opportunity to join the youth leadership, like.
But I think you and me work similar. Like we thrive
like
off
I was
of
like, you know
we
what?
could do.
Yeah, I was like, you know what? Like I wanted this, and like the fact that someone trusted me to be able to put in this opportunity, I was like, I'm glad that I am here. If that makes sense. And I think back then, I had the mindset of like, thank God I was a pastor's kid to help me get here quicker. But like I always wanted to like, okay, you know what? Like I'm happy that I'm here now. I'm happy that like I get to try out for the worship team as a drummer. Like I'm happy to start my own group. You gave me like
you saw the perks.
Yeah, everything. Like I was like looking at perks, and yes, like the cons sucked at the moment, but I think there was so much perks, and like I was just trying to be like, you know what, like this is a good teaching moment for me. I wouldn't want to change it, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
It was tough. I'm not gonna lie. Like it was tough. It was annoying, but I feel like most of the time, I was like, I wouldn't want to get out of that. If that makes sense.
Okay.
Yeah, because one thing that resonates with me for sure, and I went through my own process of this, and now I always, it clicked something in me. When I did my own therapy, I basically got guided into speaking to a younger version of me. And basically the therapist is like, what would you have told your younger self? And that broke me down because we're going through like scenarios of, like rough times, my parents lacking patience and, punishing me for everything, whatever. And I heard this in what some of what you guys were saying, which was, I told my younger self, like, it's okay for you to be a kid.
Yeah.
And I feel like it sounds like there were some scenarios in your guys' lives where you guys felt like you weren't allowed to be a kid. Like it's two different conversations that we could have, right? The 18-year-old version where like I just want to party and blah blah blah. That I think that's a separate conversation, but I'm talking about a younger version of your guys' selves where you guys had the pressure of like, well, I'm a PK, my dad is Tony Perez, he's known on the Western Hemisphere, so many thousands, maybe millions of people know him, like I have to act a certain way, and there's this pressure of like I need to be perfect, right? My version was much different. Mine was just like my parents just expected like a mature version of me, like no mistakes. Don't be dropping a glass of water. When I tell you to eat this, eat this. When I tell you to do this, right?
Sounds like you had worse.
I know. Legit.
Oh yeah.
It's like,
Maybe you should have been a PK.
But I feel like there's similarities where you guys felt like I'm not allowed to make a mistake. I'm not allowed to play as a kid. I'm not allowed. I need to act like a mini adult. That's basically what it was expected of me. And like for me personally, it was liberating to speak to that younger version of me and be like, it's okay for you to be a kid.
Yeah.
And if nobody's gonna back you up, I'm gonna back you up, And I could see how in your guys' case and many PKs case, because there's much worse stories of PKs, right?
yeah, for sure.
And I think it all stems from a similar scenario where it's like you're expected to be a certain way, which means that you're expected to not make mistakes, to not have those mistakes publicized, to just present this like basically presidential family type of thing. And you're not allowed mistakes, and that pressure can destroy a lot of people. And I feel like that's what makes a lot of people snap. And thank God you guys didn't get put to that point. And I think it's because you guys had amazing parents. I feel like you guys had pressure from the church. Sometimes maybe your parents might have like had these like these moments where they said certain things or whatever, but it was never, I've known your parents for a little bit of time, but the little time that I knew them, like they loved you guys like so much, like, and so I don't feel like they walked around like with the stick and like, you did this wrong and this wrong. But it's still on some level, it's just like you guys felt the pressure of like, I need to be perfect. And like in your scenario, what I heard was what you learned was I need to hide things. What I've seen in you is I'm not going to, well, some things you hide, but like, your thing is not so much hiding. Now I need to perfect it and outwork. So even though there might be errors, I've done so much on the scale of good that the bad, like all my good that I'm doing outweighs my bad. And that's what makes you a workaholic. It makes you like, that's your drive. And so like you're every single kid through their own experience picks a road that they're going down.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a lot of people, I was a hider too. I'm like, if I make a mistake, my parents were not supportive at all.
Yeah.
Like you couldn't be like, I had a sip of alcohol today. Oh, great job.
Yeah,
like it's all right. Just, just don't let it happen again. Like, no. Like you got destroyed. Right. And you guys didn't get destroyed, but like you guys felt the pressure of like, if somebody finds out, like I'm like, there's going to be terrible things that possibly happen to me and my family. So now I'm not just protecting me. I'm protecting my family and the image of your dad, which was like the one on the platform.
And I think that's why maybe we put pressure on ourselves. Like I feel like a lot of pressure came from ourselves because we loved our parents. I feel like there's a lot of PK families who like they don't care or they're just are so upset and just want to rebel against their parents that they leave church and they start acting wild. And you hear that's where like, oh, PKs are known for being bad or whatever.
The worst of the kids.
Yeah,
I don't think we were like that.
Because we loved them. I think we loved them. And
because
so we're
I
like,
think
we
our
don't
parents
want.
did such a good job, at least for me, because like while you're talking, I'm like, I never felt like I couldn't make a mistake in front of them. I just knew I couldn't make like, I couldn't let the church know about it. Don't let the church hear about like what I've done. But like my parents, they never cast me away. Like when they found out about my big sin and stuff like that, they loved me. They literally were doing Santa Cena with me and made sure like we prayed over the moment. Like it was never like they threw me on the side. So I knew that it wasn't like they were horrible people. I just knew that the people couldn't handle the realness. That's how I felt. Like the church couldn't handle the realness. So I think that allowed us to love our parents because they were still great parents and like took care of our hearts. They knew that we were human. They knew we were going to make mistakes. However, there was still that pressure of just being past the kids, being on the spotlight. Like, you can't show this to everybody in the world. Like, it's still, we're not talking about this, but we still love you through this. And so I think it allowed us to respect our parents. I wanted to honor my parents. I never wanted them to look bad in front of anybody because I knew they were good people. They were trying their best. They did practice what they preached to. I think a lot of pastors' kids see the hypocrisy that their parents do where they'll talk certain things on stage. And then when they're home, they're the worst people ever. Truly, our parents weren't like that. Like, I don't remember my parents being cruel, mean, even with each other. Like, they were loving people all the way around. Of course, they weren't perfect, but they were great people. And so I think that allowed us to also honor them and respect them because we knew that it wasn't fake, like what they were projecting. So it allowed us to like, we were raised with good, like we had the best, I think, of
both worlds.
The PK life. Like we got a really good version of it because we have a lot of PKs at RTLA and I hear their story and I'm like, oh, mine was not like that. Like, thank God. Like there's some people that it was really, really bad. And so I think that that's one of the biggest reasons that all of us have stayed in the faith, have been able to continue to serve almost all of our lives, that we've always been able to dedicate our life to God because our parents were genuine, like they followed God and looked like Jesus on pulpit and at home. And so it was easy for us to like follow that life. They did a good job.
So it sounds like your parents are what made the difference for you guys.
I think so.
Because, I mean, I don't know if you guys have directly heard stories or just like seen stories like either on social media or the news or wherever. But because my next question was, what do you think is the difference between your guys' lives and why you guys never really like rebelled and got super crazy and went down like this huge deep hole versus other people that actually did have that happen to them? Like, and right now it seems like the sole reason is your parents. Yeah. Because in the story where you didn't go into the church, what I heard you say was, well, I knew my parents loved my hair. And so like that foundation at home was solid. So when those scenarios, or if those scenarios happen, you never question like, oh, does my dad not like you know, like you knew he loved it, and you're just like, okay, it's a church thing. It's not my dad thing, you know? But do you guys think there's anything else that could have attributed to, I I guess, your saving grace, or the reasons why maybe other PKs or other ministry kids just like fall out of it? Because I think there's a big statistic that says at the age of 18, a lot of kids just leave church.
Yeah.
Like once they feel like they have the decision to go or not go, they don't go.
Yeah.
A lot of them.
I feel like, in my opinion, they're like the switch up between home and church is so grand that I think that's where a lot of PK / ministry kids are like, how can I be in this household / a church that's so hypocritical? Like one way you act one way and another way you act another way. Like that's not like truthful and all that. I feel like our parents were consistent with loving at the church and with us.
Yeah.
And I feel like, in my opinion, I never got like everything I did. So for instance, like the whole hair thing, like they would tell me, and it wasn't like, oh, it's just because, like they would give me a reason. He's like, hey, they're just not understanding of it. Like, and that's something we have to respect. Or my mom's like, hey, like you're getting disciplined now because of this. And it's not anything bad. Like I feel like every time they explained something to me, it was with the loving grace of like, okay, that is making sense. Like they took the time to not just like switch their pastor / parent role, or that like church role and parent role, but like instead it's like constantly teaching in a loving manner. And like, hey, you might not understand it and that's fine, but this is what like we mean by it. And really like walking down, and like I feel like that's what helped me to stay in the faith and have like really love my parents as pastors, because I was like, okay, they taught me how to like love, and they were always explaining things throughout the word. Like I feel like they were a good pastor and parent because they're like walking with me of life, like, hey, this is the reasons why we're doing this. And like it's not because of you, it's because people don't understand. And you have to understand. And I would get annoyed because I was like, why are people so close-minded?
Yeah.
Like I was like, get so frustrated. I was like, that's so annoying. And they're like, I know, but we have, like, that's why. Like, that's why you're a pastor's kid, and that's why you have to act a certain way, because they don't understand. And like, and I think that's times where I was like, I couldn't act like a kid or all that a certain times, because I was like, okay, they're not understanding of it, so I have to like
change
put this
them.
wall, change the role and be like, okay. But it never like made me frustrated with them, because they took the time to be like, hey, this is why. And we understand you're frustrated, but you just, at this moment, you have to deal with it. And they were always through that.
I was still frustrated with them, but I like knew it, but I was just like, why do we care? Like it was kind of those things. But I think that, like, for sure, like our parents being good pastors and parents. But two things that came to mind is they pushed for us to have our own encounters with the Lord heavily. And the second is serving. So the encounters with the Lord, they were very intentional with like, they wanted us to get to know God for ourselves. It wasn't like they were trying to just like, we love the Lord because I love the Lord. Like that's what we do. It's like, go and seek the Lord. Like he can speak to you. When we had encounters, they pushed for us to have those moments of encounters. They had moments of like writing our letters, and like they allowed us to like break down at church and like feel all our emotions at church. And so they pushed us to find our own faith with God. And of course, not all of it took place of like us trusting our faith until maybe later on. But like that was big pillars, like where I had encounters and moments with God and the Holy Spirit at a young age, because my parents were very like, they knew that was essential. So I wasn't just at church to be at church, but like I wanted a relationship with God, and like I knew who God was for myself, or I was learning that. And then the second thing, I think serving at church allowed us to see what communities needed, what people needed, and like it made us love people a lot. So it wasn't, I don't feel like I remember being forced to serve. It was always coming from like a genuine place. My parents weren't like, you need to serve at church. It was always like, we would bring it up like, oh, I want to become like a teacher. I want to help with this area. My mom would be like, okay, like you can, or whatever it is. But it was more like, I remember my mom making sure that we knew that we were fortunate kids. And I think serving allows us to open up our hearts to, again, love on people and see that people needed guidance, people needed love, people needed nurturing in their homes or whatever it was. And I think that allowed us to love people. So when people did bad things, we knew that wasn't everybody. And so I think that also helped, because I think a lot of pastors' kids get raised, again, they see hypocrisy at home. They don't have their own encounters with the Lord. So it's like what the church pushes, it's forced. And like you just have to accept it because that's what it is. And then they don't serve, or they don't see that they can serve on their own. It's like a forced thing. And so then they don't love the people that they're doing community with or in the church with. And so then they hate the church, they hate their parents, and then they hate the God that they don't really know. And so I think those three things are like big pillars for.
That's good.
That's really good.
I think for me, all of that. And I think my mom's family, and the reason I say that is because, my dad had this, we came from like a legalistic, like Pentecostal, and that's kind of like, well, maybe the Guatemalan culture, right? Like he said, Hispanic and stuff. But for those of you who don't know, my mom is Puerto Rican, and their family, like you can't fake it. Like they are themselves, and they're loud and like boisterous. And I think every time we got together, I think that grounded her. So like she knew she couldn't fake like who she was, and so she allowed us to be ourselves. And that's something like you can't, like you can't fake. I feel like if she was fake at church and at home, like her siblings, her mom would call it out, like what the, because they were just so real and authentic all the time. So I think they brought that realness and authenticity everywhere they go. And my mom was a huge pillar of transforming my dad's legalistic mind and the church. Like she was the one behind the scenes, like telling him like, hey, this is a lot about like hypocrisy. This is very like cited in behavior modification. And so I think it was like how she was raised. And so I think that helped us a lot of like being able to be ourselves.
His brothers, he was like, they were all, once they became Christian, they were all very like,
rigid.
They were
Very
like,
rigid.
they were not like people that just like share. I think also maybe men, like they're not natural, like, oh yeah, I'm going through this hard problem. Like you, for the most part, you just talk casual talk or whatever, versus like being a woman, you just talk about like everything in life and all the ins and outs. So I think that also, it was like a cultural thing. My dad just being a man and his family, and they're all very like, for the most part, rigid. And then my mom was very much like real, like loud. We're not gonna fake it. Like my mom brought a lot of warmth to the church, and my mom was a lot of the heart of the church. So my dad did an amazing job pastoring the church, teaching the church how to worship, teaching the church how to walk forward in their race or like, go towards God. My dad, I love him so much. Like he's an amazing pastor. But my mom brought that warmth and she was the one who started teaching that, like bringing humanity to the circumstances, the realness, showing people like come into our home. Like we're people that you can come into the house and like, we're not going to present a front. Like this is how we are. Like she invited people into the home. I think without my mom, that would never happen. Like our doors would have been closed. So my mom was that warmth and that heart. And I think that was a beautiful balance. So I think their marriage was just a beautiful example for us of, like we knew what rigidity, like what rigid looked like, but we also saw what like warmth looked like, and we just got raised in an amazing environment. I think it was an amazing, healthy environment for us to like the seeds that were planted could grow.
Because a lot of people do, I think, and you probably could speak on that, like from your outside perspective. They would be like, it's so refreshing seeing pastor's family like just be ourselves, and people I think like saw that as an example, and we were not like, we have to be an example in this area. It was just that was natural, like naturally so. And so I think that helped a lot, the mom we had.
All right. To the one PK that is a parent, what cycles have you repeated, and what cycles have you ended?
Well, I kind of answered that already. The ones I repeated is like their need to be the best. But that's kind of our motto. The Garcias try their best.
It's
And that's different from being the best.
the motto.
Garcias try our best. It's like, you are the best, right? So you better be the best. So, it's just like people are like David could care less if like, you know how sometimes our Chile has the family services? Like David could care less if they're being loud, and he just like lets it happen. And I'm like, shh, shh, shh. And I care what people think. And so I'm like, I want to be known as a good example of a parent. I want my kids to be good examples of kids. And so I for sure have brought that like speculation of like, let's be an example. Like we have to. Who told me you're an example of a mom? And nobody. Like I put that label on myself. And so that's something I've carried for sure. Behavior like modification. I don't want to say like that's it, but that's all I can think of. You can call me on it. I think what I've changed is the need to always like to have my kids be uncomfortable because I chose something. So for example, like midweeks, we've decided our kids are little, like they have to wake up at 6 a.m. Like it's not fair for them to be late night service because we've decided to serve or we've decided to go to church. Because the reality is, if they wake up early and go to school, they're not going to do good in school. They're going to be cranky, and that's not their fault. Like, why are we setting them up, like for not for failure, but you know, like for being discomfort?
I failed because of school because of that. I'm kidding.
And so I think like those cycles, and we've talked about how one of the things being pastors' kids, like we didn't have the best eating habits because it was like after church we're gonna eat junk food. After a meeting we're gonna go eat like everything was go. What's most convenient?
Even in conferences we had to go like McDonald's breakfast. I remember.
Yeah.
Like get soup.
Yeah. It was like we're going somewhere early, McDonald's breakfast. We're in between churches, whatever. Like let's eat out. And so we decided like we're not gonna do that. Also like making them uncomfortable again because something we chose. So that's something I stopped. And I felt guilty. I'm not gonna lie. Like in the beginning, I was like, "Why are we not going? Does that mean that we're not
I
like?"
judged you, not gonna lie.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I was like, "Why are we not going?" I felt like not less of a Christian, but I'm like, they're gonna think that I am not loyal to our TLA or like I'm being rebellious or something like that. And I felt uncomfortable for a while. And I'm like, you know what? Like this is a season. Our kids are little.
Yeah.
And it's not gonna last forever. But like this is for their good. And we like Tuesdays. Yesterday we went to a meeting. It lasted a little bit long, but we're not making that habit. We're not making that the norm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
like that's the exception.
Yeah, I went from judging you guys to like admiring, and I'm like, okay, like once I saw the reasons, but before it was just like that's not how you were raised. Like it was like you take your kids no matter what. Like that's ministry life. Like you make them go. That's how they learn that this is what's the most important. And now I'm just like, no, like that's true. Like it's not. They're not gonna learn that God's most important by forcing them to. Like, that's not where I found God, is being forced to stay at late meetings. And that's not where I met God. I met God in different circumstances. I met God in, you know, within community and all those things. So I think it's just, that was like the judgment came from just like I was raised a certain way, and why are you changing all of a sudden, like the way we were raised? But when you figure out the reason, then you like, again, parent with intentionality, it makes the biggest difference. And you're just like, wow, like it makes sense. Like you're not doing it for just no reason. You're not going on Wednesday because you guys are being lazy. Like you guys, of course, are also doing this. Yeah. But like you guys aren't doing it just because there's a reason. There's a way we want to raise our kids. And it's like that's what's the most beautiful and important thing, and something I admire from you guys as parents. Thank you.
And for the soon to be parents, what cycles would you?
You're pregnant? I'm just kidding.
You don't see this?
Well, for the future parents,
Yeah.
What cycles would you guys be intentional in breaking? And kind of, I guess that also translates to, I guess, all three of you question. What advice would you guys give to parents? Like going through the experiences that you went through. Again, this is a question for you guys and specific to how you guys are going to parent, but also maybe ministry parents are listening and just like, okay, where do I need to correct? As I'm hearing this episode, where do I need to correct my life? I've heard, okay, I can't be a hypocrite. I can't be one person at home. Can't be another person at church. I need to be the same person. But like, what cycles would you guys want to break? And that in turn turns into what advice would you guys give to parents?
Yeah. I feel like, in my opinion, like from what I've learned, like learn when to be a parent and learn when to be a leader. I feel like a lot of times when I had conversations with my dad or mom, most of the time it was very pastoral advice, when in reality, like I was just ramble on of like for instance, like how Melody will bully me, and then they're like, Proverbs says you have to honor or like do this, and I'm like, I just want to tell you how
my parents.
Yeah, I just want like.
That's
so
true.
there's times where like that, where it's like they would like give me a verse or like just pray, and I'm like, okay, I love you, but like I don't need prayer right now. Like I just need my parent to like kind of be on my side.
Yeah, your sister is annoying.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to deal with 3 of them. It's like,
Let's print out a picture and throw darts at her.
yeah. So I feel like, in my opinion, what I would want is like learn to parent and like listen to them, to be like that friend of like, hey, okay, talk to me. What's going on? And then if you do need that spiritual advice, then give it. But most it's like learn to distinguish between, are you pastoring and being a leader, or are you being their parent? And I feel like that will help them to, that's what I want to do with our kids, because like I know that will help them to understand like, okay, my parents always has got my back. They respect me, they love me, but I can also go to them if I did sin, they're not gonna like give me a bunch of Bible verses, but instead they're gonna be like, I want to like show them that, hey, I love you even if you messed up. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
As a parent. And then if they need spiritual advice, you can talk to me, or you can talk to your pastor. If I am their pastor, talk to another pastor. Because I feel like a lot of
that's what I was
times,
gonna say.
I feel like a lot of times, like when I would go for seeking spiritual stuff, I would go with my parents, but then I feel like I couldn't go to anybody else. And like all I could go to was my parents. So then I couldn't distinguish if they're my parent or if they're my pastor.
Yeah.
So I feel like I would be like, look, talk to your leader. If something is going on, like tell them what happened. But as a parent, I love you, I respect you, but you might be grounded, you might not, like whatever, you get me?
Yeah.
So that's what I would get. And I wouldn't force them to serve unless they want to. But I, like me and my household, my wife, like we will influence them by like how we act, by showing the amazing parts of serving and of going to church and all of that. But yeah, I feel like I want to do the whole like staying up till midnight for vigilias or stuff like that, because again, it does ruin their just cognitive and like them
At
growing
a young
up.
age, it's like essential for
Exactly.
them to get rest
So-
at a certain time. Yeah.
So I would not like do that, but just overall, like learn when to parent and learn when to be the leader.
I think for me, something that I kind of, you already talked about, is allowing your kids to not just need you, but to learn what community is. Community is so important and essential for the growth of a Christian, of a person. Like you just need people. And so I think just like in moments where I, let's say, messed up or I broke down or whatever, not just being like, okay, it's just within us that we're going to talk about it, but let's connect you with somebody else so you can talk to about it, and let's see if you can go to like a connect group where you can talk to people that are your age and are going through similar things, like connecting them with people that are going to be in similar circumstances, or they're allowed to talk about what they went through. Because again, for me, it was very much like, okay, yeah, you did certain things and there's isolation. It wasn't, okay, you did certain things, now we're going to get around other people that maybe struggle with this and figure out how we can get better, or how we can never do this again, or whatever, like how we can get better at this. So I think connecting my kids and making sure, one, when they do mess up, like I think our parents already did a good job, but like making sure that they know that God loves them, and it's like they're not condemning they're not gonna go to hell because they sinned. Like that's not like that what that lady talked about, like that purity and sanctification. Like our kids can't have any impure thoughts or anything like that. I remember our parents, well, I wasn't even our parents, but it was the church, like the oh, if you give away this, like you're never gonna get it back, and like if you lose your virginity, you're never gonna get that back, and like you damned yourself, your marriage, and all those things. Pushing that on to a kid, it's not gonna be helpful when kids naturally have a natural desire for sex, for those things at a young age. So allowing them to be human, allowing to let them know that it's completely normal for those moments, but then trying to connect them with other people so that they can do life with other people and know that they're not alone. And like, it's not just, you don't have to keep it between us and the family. You don't have to hide it. It's okay. It's normal to be normal, and go ahead and talk to other people about it.
That's good. I think a recurring theme that as we're talking, it seems like partly why the pressure comes from the pastors or the leaders is not because the parents can't handle it. It's because they're afraid the people can't handle it. And so I think my advice is like your identity, like take it away from what your kids do. Like your identity can't be tied into how good your kids are or how bad your kids are. And I know I said that, but mind you, I only have, right now my oldest is 8. So maybe he does worse things, and then You've
only done this for 8 years.
I take it back, and I have no idea what I'm talking about. But right now, our son, which he doesn't watch the podcast, but our son said a big bad word, right? And I remember you were like thrown off, like you were just like shocked. And I was like, it doesn't make him a bad kid. Like my identity was not tied to that. Like I was like, okay, he knows a bad word. Cool. I did not feel like a bad parent. I know. But I'm saying like it's easier to.
Let me just ask a question though. Would that, okay, you just said like your identity wasn't tied to that.
Yeah.
Would the scenario would that scenario been different if he would have said that word in front of our family, our friends, our church? If he's in the middle of our church and our family's there and he said that word at the top of his lungs.
Oh, probably. But I think with anyone. But I think like I can say it in real time to people because I'm not like, oh, I'm a bad parent. You know, like I can say like, this is what we're currently going through with our kid and we're navigating this season because I don't feel like a bad mom. Like I'm not tied to my identity. Versus before, it's like, let's say he gets older and he has sex before marriage or whatever. Like I'm not going to tell my friends in my community because it's like who they're going to be like, oh, well, you raised him like that. Oh, what did you teach him? Yeah. What did you do wrong? What did you do right? You know, where before, obviously it's embarrassing if like people find out, but you're not afraid. You're not like, Elijah, don't tell anyone. Like you can't say anything because our image, like people are going to be like, but I think it's, comes from identity and it also comes from like, do we really think people, which I think pastors and leaders need to hear, like you are not Jesus, you're not the Holy Spirit. So if your kid, being a teenager and sinning, like doing something makes the people walk away or makes them fall into sin, then they were going to do it regardless. Like that's not your kid's responsibility to save the other people from that, you know? Yeah. Like, can they be a good person and be good influence? 100%. But again, if your kid is the one, like you're worried, if you do that, the whole church is going to do that, like be careful. Cause I feel like that's what we had in our mind. Then that's such a weak foundation that you have for your church. If one kid can destroy the whole youth, you know, and like make them all turn rebels. And so I think it's like, don't place that burden on your kid because it's not for him to convict and it's not for him to set the example. Like and just how the Bible says teachers have a more responsibility and pastors have more responsibility, but your child did not ask for that life. Like they did not pick that ministry. And so it's not fair for them to carry that on. Like, can you do that? 100%. But let your child, again, reach maturity and pick that for themselves. Then that's something else. That's the calling on their life, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
One recurring thing that kept coming up in this episode, and I think that's what we're going to end off with, is it sounds like, especially with your guys' scenario, you guys basically said, whatever we went through, it was okay for us to go through it within our family because our parents understood. They were there for us. They might have given us the pastoral answers, but they accepted us. They loved us through it all. And then what you guys said in the scenario, let's say of like Jesse's hair or other scenarios that were named or other things that were said, was basically, we just can't let the church find out. We can't let them find out or them find out. So my question now to you guys is, do you guys see that as an issue? What is the issue and what solves the issue? Is the issue just, oh, those are more of like the old school, people, and once that generation passes away, it'll be better because now the younger generation is more about grace and more, let's talk about vulnerability and what we're going through? Or do you think even the kids that are in this generation of more grace are still going through the same things?
I think the issue is making your sin seem so great. Because that's not a pastoral or like leadership issue. I think that's just a Christian church issue where people are no longer confessing. And like that's something that as a Christian we're called to do. Mm-hmm. But they talk about all the great things about church, right? Testimonies, you hear all of that stuff. But how common is it to gather and be like, I struggled with this today. I did this today. You don't hear that. And so I think as soon as you took confession out of church and religion, which has been like that for a while, I think that's where the issue came of like, we have to hide. Like there's this pressure, like this is who we are. And so I don't think the next generation is going to bring that just because it's a new generation. Because you see that, like I start seeing it from my kids at a young age. When they do something wrong and you ask them, did you do this? No, it's very natural to want to hide. It's supernatural. That's a human like characteristic. We do something bad, like we want to hide and we feel shame. It's natural. And so the only way to get out of that is to cultivate it. It's to practice, see it, get rid of that shame little by being like, oh, this is just something I do. Yeah. But you don't get there until you you see someone has created a safe space and you're like, they could do it. They were fine. And if anything, they got freedom from it and they feel so much love. I want that. Okay, I'm going to start practicing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. I feel like it was hard to openly talk about like my sin at church because the whole like being a pastor, you can't go through that. And then I feel like that's so true. Like with the whole just people, they talk about sin and then either it's just like, oh, like I feel like sometimes now like people are like, oh, you sinned. It's like, that's fine. You can keep serving. Or it's like, oh, you sinned. Like, yeah, that was terrible of you. Like, and then you have to keep it in and all that. So I feel like there's such a like grand of like,
There's a huge gap, right?
Yeah, there's a huge gap of like, oh, that's fine. Like, oh, you slept with 2 people. That's okay. Like, you can
Keep
continue
going.
serving. Or, wow, like, you smoked a weed one time. Like,
That's how you know that you don't smoke weed.
That's how you know I don't do it.
smoked a weed.
You smoked the
I'm
pot.
gonna
a
clip
weed.
that right there.
But,
You smoked the weed.
like,
Yo,
but
have you ever smoked the weed?
that's how you know I never did it. But,
It's okay. You can say it. It's a safe space.
no, but, like, oh, yeah, you did that, like, you never talk about it again and like
Yeah.
keep it
You're a
hidden,
horrible
keep
person.
it down, and like, and it almost is like either it makes Christ almost seem like, or God like oh yeah, he's
Complicit
just,
with sin,
yeah,
or-
yeah, like he died for no reason, or it's just like, oh no, like well his sacrifice wasn't enough for what you did, and it's just like, and I feel like now the issue is kind of getting back to like the root of what church should be is telling people Christ died for all sins. You're still loved, but there is consequences when you do sin. And even though you sin, you're still loved, but you still need to repent and you still need to take a break from serving and seek God. And I feel like I didn't know, like, I remember I felt ashamed because I remember I sinned and I had to go in front, sit in front, and I was just like, and people were like, bro, what did you do? And then like, I felt like it was like crazy because it was just like, you were in a spot and you're like, oh, I can't talk about it. Like my sin is so big. But then in reality, it's like sin to God is like, as long as you repent, he's like, it's wiped clean. And that's what I'm saying. I feel like there has to be a good balance where all churches need to understand like sin is sin. Christ died for your sin. And there has to be repentance and asking for forgiveness while also not condemning them for it.
Yeah.
So I feel like that's the
What's
issue.
ironic with that, like as he was saying that, what's ironic is that that needs to start with pastors and leadership to create the culture. And every time I hear a leader or a pastor talk about it, be like, but we're leaders, we have to be at a higher standard, so we can't let people in as much because there's this like level, right? So it's like, I can tell you because you're beside me, like we're on the same level, we're both pastors or we're both leaders, so I can tell you, but I can't tell them. But they need to listen to it because they're falling and they don't know how to confess because they don't hear it from you. Does that make sense? So they're even saying like, yeah, like confess, but if I'm gonna confess, I'm just gonna do it to you. Where it's like, how are the people gonna learn?
Yeah.
And even with
Confession
that,
is
like,
top.
I never knew, like you guys were in like quote unquote like disciplina or like sins, like until you told me, and you haven't even told me what you did. I'm like curious what you did. But that's crazy that
Probably
even,
what I did.
that's crazy that even like in family, like there's no like transparency, like vulnerability of like, hey, your sibling did this. Like I feel like that's a perfect opportunity to practice showing love.
Yeah.
To showing your sibling, like you see that, like she's the same. And we can hug her and like.
Or even as parents, I did the same thing. I struggled
Yeah.
with this too. I didn't hear my parents tell me that they struggled with what I struggled with, even though I know that they probably did. Like, but nope, I didn't know that I thought I was completely alone until I was
alien.
older. Yeah. And I thought I was like, how could I have done this? Like, I'm the worst person. How could I have, like, the devil lives inside of me. Like, I'm so bad. And so I think that is such a key thing is like learning how to vocalize and say, because even now, there was recently you shared your story at the retreat. You opened up. I told family about it and they still were like, why would she open up about that? Not everybody needs to know her business. And I was like, but there's no shame anymore. She's free of it. She can, that's beautiful. And they still were like, I don't think so. And I was just like, there's still.
Give me names.
I told you.
But do you think it's because they're afraid other people are gonna be like, she did it, other people could do it?
Yeah, I think they were just like, well, she's gonna get judged. Why would she put herself in a position that she's going to be judged in? And I was like, well, she doesn't care about the judgment because she knows her worth in God. Like she knows what she did was wrong. She repented of that. There's no shame and condemnation in Jesus. Like you don't need to be held back. It's like the same thing. It's like when you finally are free from something, there's no need to be like, you care what people
You're
think.
not thinking about
you don't care. Like it's just, I'm free from this. Like imagine you finally like are able to walk after not walking. You don't care that someone's like, how it doesn't matter what they think. It doesn't matter how they thought I got it. I got my freedom. I got my whatever it is. And so I think starting that, I had a whole conversation with them, and I think eventually they kind of were like, okay, like maybe they still were kind of iffy on their own, but until it's a common thing where we talk about like it's I'm free or it's normalized, I'm still struggling through this, whatever it is, then I think the older and younger generation will learn from that. The older generation might take way longer to understand and realize the freedom that comes from confessing because they were raised so different. But I don't think that it's a lost cause because I think the Holy Spirit can soften their hearts. The Holy Spirit can teach them the power of confession. But I think confession is like one of the biggest things because it allows us as people to unite and like find community within that. But it also allows the Holy Spirit to come into those spaces because until you can vocalize and say it, it's like God can't come into a room that you have shut. Like he's such a gentleman. You have to open it up. And a lot of that has to happen within conversation because that's only the way it really happens sometimes. So confession, I think, is super important.
Yeah. And I feel like, not to get like sidetracked, but I feel like going with you, what you said, like, I feel like one of the issues of like why we can't confess or people judge is because I feel like the leaders and pastors have made like, I feel like now church have made pastors and leaders like this like front where it's like almost perfect, and it's like, oh no, like basically what we've been talking about, like we cannot show our sins because we're the pastor and we're the leader, when in reality the pastor is meant to walk with the people and like and give example and give example like hey, you've been going through that, hey, I went through that too, but guess what, God was the answer of how I overcame this and how I was overcoming. No, they're like, oh yeah, pray on it. Like, I'll be praying for you.
You're the only one.
Yeah, like, damn, that's crazy. Like, you're the only one. Like, I'm so sorry. And then they're like, yeah, you shouldn't be talking about that because you're in this platform and, like, we have to look good. And it's like, church now has made leadership and pastoral stuff, like, so, like, high and mighty, like, almost as, like,
because
kingdom
and all
that. Yeah,
but
this
it's
pedestal.
so linked to, like, their livelihood, too.
Exactly.
So and then that's a whole other thing.
It is a whole other thing. And that's why I'm like, I can't. Part 2. Like,
because imagine a pastor gets canceled. Where is his next paycheck coming from? Where is he? Like,
and that's the one thing.
There's a whole repercussion.
But that's the one thing I love about Dad and how I respect him as a pastor, because he never got paid from the church. For a long time, he got paid with doing music, and people asked him, "Hey, can you come to do the music part?" That was fine.
But not a lot of people could do that.
But also,
no, I know not a lot of people.
He didn't bring a lot of humanity onto the platform.
He could have.
Like, yeah, but he did. You know what I mean? Like, he wasn't an example of
vulnerability.
You know, he was like, even with us, he wasn't a big vulnerable guy.
No,
like,
yeah,
that's not how
but
he is.
But at least it wasn't like. But I'm just saying, I feel like other pastors and all that, like, because again, they have such this like platform, and then with the income and all that coming, that they're like, no, I can't talk about it, or like, oh yeah, I'm gonna give you advice, like you could come to me, but that's about it. And then it's just like, where's the walking then? Like, where's the being honest? Because Jesus walked with everybody and was completely honest with them about life is gonna be hard, like being a Christian is gonna suck, but guess what, the outcome of it is gonna be so much perfect when you go through that. And I feel like that's the issue now, where pastors aren't giving the people, like, they're not reminding people the repercussions of sins, but also being so gentle with them to be like, hey, you can open up and I will sympathize with you and I will tell you, hey, I went through that too. We're going to walk in this together, and that's it.
Yeah.
So,
and I wonder if the solution, you know how everyone's a Christian and there's so many mega churches and it's popular being Christian. And when you really see through it, you're kind of wondering, like, who is a Christian and who's just like lukewarm. I wonder if that would be a solution, because once you start confessing, you're not worried about who's going to stay at my church, who's going to go, or who's going to fall into sin if I confess. Because I think, again, a lot of pastors and leaders fear that. If I tell them I'm struggling, I'm not a good example, I'm not a good enough leader, they're going to walk away, right?
It's the quantity instead of the quality of the people.
Yeah, and so I wonder, because when, again, the first time we heard a leader be super vulnerable was in that situation at KOA. And he, like, his wife was there and it was a few of us. And he just said, this is what I'm currently struggling like with today. Like, he's like, I can't go into a coffee no, he said he can't stay at home and do work because his issue was with porn. He's like, I can't stay at home. And so to this day, I go to a coffee shop. So it's not something that he has conquered. It was something he was like currently struggling with. And he was a youth pastor. He was a leader. And I was like shocked of like, I was like looking around like, wait, did he just say that? Like no one's shocked. Like he just told on himself. Like he's not perfect. But that did not make me say like, oh, he's struggling with porn. I could struggle with porn. Like that gives me freedom. Like nowhere in me did I think that.
Yeah.
But I think
gave us hope.
It gave us hope. Yeah. And that if you're a real Christian, I feel like that's what you're going to think. Like, wow, we can confess and turn away and find solutions and not be afraid of it. Versus, I'm sure there's going to be Christians who say, oh, he watches porn, then maybe I can watch porn. Then you decide, and there you see the problem of like, you'll start seeing the chaff or whatever it's called, right? The wheat, like from the real thing of like, who is here to follow God and who's just here for a social club. So I wonder if that's just because so many pastors are afraid of that. Like, oh, be careful your testimony. You don't know if they're going to follow you. So
I think money and influence have corrupted a lot of the Western Christianity. I think pastors have become slaves to that. Slaves to the paycheck and slaves to the influence. And exactly how you guys said, like, oh, if people knew what I've done or what I've thought, then they're not going to follow me. And if they don't follow me, then what the heck am I going to do for a job?
Yeah.
And I think it'll always go back to the principle that Grace says, which is when you keep things in the dark, that's when you give the most power to the enemy. And it's not until you bring it to the light is when you get that freedom that you were talking about, where it's like, I don't care what anybody thinks. Like I've said it. I know what I've gone through. Like there's nothing that you could ever say or do to me that is ever going to affect me. Like I know my worth, you know?
It's the power of love, the power of Jesus. Like
Exactly.
But I think that's what the biggest issue is. Why we don't have that culture is because many of the pastors are slaves to that.
Yeah.
And the only way to kill that is to kill capitalism, really, in America.
Yeah.
I recommend
Be an
people to
example.
watch the Better Everyday podcast, but also like Carl Lentz and his wife, like what they went through. Like I thought it was a huge deal, and I think that's what we're seeing, where how their calling was tied to like the money, and how like the church just completely like shunned them out, right? But going on to the podcast, I'm not gonna lie, I was a little bit skeptical. Like, what are they doing returning to a platform? Like, just thinking about it. But it was so refreshing to hear them like shared their struggles and put it all out there, and like their kids talking about it and everything. Because you're like, this is what the world needs. They need to see more Davids sinning and coming back and telling their story. They need to see Samson saying like, this is my weakness. Like, that's what we need to see. And we don't need to see like, all is good and dandy. Like we have it all together.
Yeah.
We're Christians. Like we don't need that anymore.
Yep.
Like we don't need that anymore.
I agree.
Oh, and it's my podcast day, so it's my turn to close it off. I was like, why are you looking at me? I feel like I could keep talking about this forever. There were so many good questions. Yeah. And so let us know if you guys want a part 2, because there's so many questions where I'm like, oh, we didn't talk about this and this. But it's already late. So let us know. Would love to hear your guys' thoughts, because how David said, like, it's not just for pastors' kids. Yeah. It is for leaders. It's for people who have been part of a culture, like the Hispanic culture, who feel this pressure of like, what do people say, like care and think? And it's for those, again, who are people pleasers. And so let us know if you have resonated with any of this, or if you're a pastor's kid and you think that there's something specific to pastors' children that we forgot to mention. Let us know. Like always, thank you so much for all of your support. It means so much to us. And so if you want to see them back on, let us know.
And thank you guys for your guys' time.
Yes, thank you for your time. We are paying them.
Board?
We're paying them with charcuterie. But make sure you guys like, subscribe, comment, share this with someone. Click on the notifications icon so this can notify you every time we post. And thank you so much. Until next time. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.